separate, and we check you can get Wi-Fi in that room. It all takes us like one rogue worker to like turn on the Wi-Fi and your air gap is over. So sad. I talked. Okay, it's 5:30. So we'd like to call this regular scheduled meeting in Santa Clara City Council to order. I'd like to welcome everyone who is here tonight. We appreciate you being here. I'm Mayor Rick Rosenberg. We have present a full council tonight, Councilman Ben Shakespeare, Councilwoman Lena Mathis, Councilwoman Krista Hinton, Councilman Denny Drake, and Councilman Jarrett Wade are all here and seated. We appreciate them. We'd like to begin the meeting with an opening ceremony and Pledge of Allegiance. We've asked Councilman Shakespeare to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance, and then the opening comments will be offered by Father Dylan from the St. George Catholic Church, St. George Interfaith Council. Would everyone please rise and salute the flag? Repeat after me.
Where do I stand?
Come right to the
Okay.
podium. Welcome, sir.
Hello. I'm Father Dylan, one of the priests here in this Southern Utah area. And so I was just asked to lead you guys in prayer tonight as you begin your civic duty and your service to our community. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good and gracious God, we give you praise and thanks now in this Easter season as we celebrate the resurrection of your Son, life won for the world. Bless these, your stewards, your servants, your caretakers in their ministry to the people, to your people. Give them wisdom and courage to do what is right, to stand for justice, to serve those who need to be served, protect those lives most dear to you, the unprotected and the forgotten. Give your stewards wisdom to carry out your will in all things, the courage to do it bravely and boldly, unabashedly, in service to you, and most of all, charity, so they may love those they may find unlovable. We ask this especially through the intercession of Our Lady, the Blessed Virgin, the patron of our country, and of Saint Clare, the patron saint of this city, through Christ, always, our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
The Lord be with you, and
Thank you,
with your
Father.
spirit. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank you.
Okay, item 3 is general citizen public comment. We do have request counsel from several of the residents to address you on a variety of subjects. Let me start this by saying if your comments are related to item 5 on the agenda, this is not a public hearing. This item on the agenda is not receive public comment regarding an application where the public hearing has already happened. If you're here to discuss something else that the city is considering, or that you think they need to consider, or a suggestion, or comments about city policy or staff, or things like that, then they're welcome. You need to fill out one of these. I do have several of them, and so we'll go ahead and jump into it. If you do come up and start talking about item number 5 or the other public hearing items that were held at the Planning Commission, I will stop the discussion right then and ask you to be seated. Thank you for your cooperation. Devin Ferguson wants to talk about ballpark lighting. Devin, when you come up, I just need you to state your name and your address for the minutes, please.
Devin Ferguson, 3790 Nicholas Drive, Santa Clara. I don't know if this is the venue for it or not, but I'd like to open up discussion sometime in the future as to the ballpark lighting schedule going on at 6 a.m. before anybody even gets there. Doesn't matter what day of the week, and then staying on till 11 o'clock at night when people have been gone for 2 or 3 hours. I think it's a waste of city money there. And it's a nuisance for the nearby neighbors. To be woken up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday morning when you don't need to get up and your whole house is lit up, it's absurd. The other thing I would recommend is some maintenance lighting to be established over at the ballpark. I'm talking Goobler Park. Maintenance lighting that would not be as impactful to the neighboring community. Something that they can still function and do what they need over there without lighting up for blocks and blocks of neighbors. So,
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Michael Lee would like to address public school land near Archie Goobler Park.
My name is Michael Lee. I live at 2312 Jacob Drive in Santa Clara, northwest side of the city. I was in an administrative meeting today. At my job, I work for the public school district as the risk manager for the school district. And during that meeting, they discussed an inquiry made by the city of Santa Clara to discuss the property adjacent to Archie Goobler Park as a possible purchase. And the district was disinclined to sell that property for 2 reasons. On account of not having any other land over on this side of town, and also because with the amount of growth happening over on this side of town, it's a real possibility that they may actually need to build a school over there. A significant part of my job as the risk manager for the school district is knowing the safe routes for schools. So what I do, we have issues throughout the county of places where schools get built, and then everything happens around it, and so we have to try to figure out, well, how do we route the kids safely, to and from school now considering all the changes that have been made. With the safe routes to school and knowing full well what traffic is brought on by having any public school, but certainly an elementary school with the amount of parents bringing their kids to and from. I just urge the city as you guys are making your long-term planning, to please consider that public school land and how much traffic that is going to bring over to that side of town that already has so much going on over there. To please not just think about what's happening now, but to think about in the future, in the long future, there's a real possibility that that public school gets put in over there and how much more that is going to bring. And that's all I wanted to say today. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We made a request as recently as yesterday to get that property to allow for possibly some additional cemetery land and open space use, but word declined again. But we'll keep asking. Justin Kaplan asked to address the Justice Court.
Justin Kaplan, 1454 Boys Pond Circle. I just saw you had on your agenda today extending an offer to Jake Graff. I looked at the applicants and all of them I think were qualified, and I've worked with Jake on a lot of cases. We don't always see eye to eye, but he's a very smart and he's a good attorney. He's a fierce competitor on the other side. So it's not always fun having him on the other side. But my understanding is as a justice court judge in Hilldale and in Washington, he does a good job. And so I think he's a good choice for the city and look forward to having him.
Thank you. Adam Ellis, regarding city staff.
My name is Adam Ellis, 2288 Julie Drive. Right, do you guys answer questions here, or is this just topics to bring up?
No, we can answer if we can,
Okay.
or we'll get back to you with an answer.
All right, so I just have my question written here. So I was wondering if you could help me understand who is referred to as city staff in the notes and documents related to proposed developments and zone changes. In some of the meetings I've attended, the documents mention that the developer has been working with city staff for the past X months, or city staff recommends the following. I'm interested in knowing more about who the group is and what their role is in decision making. Additionally, I was wondering if there are opportunities for community input on projects and proposals before they've been discussed with the city staff at length.
City staff is referred to as the Technical Review Committee, the TRC. That's where any new application for a building permit or a land development project starts out. They meet every Thursday morning. It's made up of the city manager, the department heads, the gentleman that you see over here from Parks and Power, Public Works, Fire Department, Police is there, the building department, the planning director. I monitor the meetings when I can. And they basically take the applicant through the process. The city has a very defined subdivision ordinance, zoning ordinance, building code, fire code, all of those things that impact any new application. And they take the applicant through the application to make sure that he understands the information that's going to be required to submit the application. And then they review the application to make sure that it's complete before it moves forward into the either a building permit would be issued or it would go through the planning commission to start through a zone change or general plan amendment or conditional use permit or subdivision. And there's a lot of different applications that they review in that meeting. They also review special use permits. But if a reference is made to the city staff, it's typically that TRC group.
Okay, so the second part to that question was, because the city staff talks to developers and whatever for a long amount of time before it comes to public hearing, is there a way to get community input on things before they've talked to them for months and months?
I mean, that meeting is not necessarily a public meeting. I mean, there are things that are discussed in there that are, I won't say confidential, but that are sensitive to the property owners that are involved. Matt, is that?
Yeah, that's it's a good question, and the mayor's correct. The TRC meeting and other meetings that the city has either internally just with staff or sometimes with applicants who have filed applications. Those are typically not considered public meetings, not required to be public meetings under state law. The city generally follows a process that's defined by two things. The first is what's called the Municipal Land Use and Development Act. We sometimes just refer to it as LUDMA. That's a state law. And then in addition to that, our city ordinances, which also govern in more detail some of the same things and also additional considerations that are taken into account. But when someone files a land use application on a piece of property that they own or that they have a contract to purchase or some other way have rights to that property, under state law, there's a doctrine that's referred to as vested rights doctrine. It means that once that person files an application for a certain land use approval, all the things that the mayor listed, that the city has an obligation legally to take them through the process that's established by law, to consider their application under all the currently applicable ordinances and state laws. And so that's what the staff's primary responsibility is to take them through that process, prepare the application to be considered publicly before bodies like the Planning Commission and the City Council. So under those laws that the city is required to follow, there really is not a public component of that until it comes to these public meetings. And that's by design of the state legislature. They're the ones that established that process and that we're obligated to follow. The public does have opportunities to request information from the city through a process called a GRAMA request. GRAMA is another abbreviation that stands for Government Records Access and Management Act. It's another state law. If there's a particular application or a particular piece of property that you're curious about, that you want to know what information the city has about that property, you can file a GRAMA request. I think that those are available on the city's website, right, Chris? I think there's actually a page on the city's website that you can fill in to make that request, and then it's received by the city and processed, and whatever public information the city has that it can provide, we're obligated to provide it to you as a member of the public. So there are ways to get information about applications that may be pending or other business of the city. But it's through those mechanisms that information is available. So
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
No, I just think sometimes when things come about to the members of the community, something that's already been planning for a long time. So then it comes to us as kind of a surprise, where it's not actually a surprise to you guys, but it is to us. And so if there was a little more, I don't know, transparency or something beforehand, it would make things easier for everyone on the outside. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Tom Pritt. A reference or a question regarding precedents?
For your Tom Pritt, 3918 Madison Avenue, Santa Clara. For your consideration, I would like to refer to a scripture that I think has relevance and precedence regarding this issue of zoning change. And I would hope that I could share that with you.
As long as it's not specific to a piece of property, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, it is. Okay. When our spiritual fathers in Salt Lake decided to plat the area, they provided each family garden space. And anyway, this is from Isaiah, and he's considered a prophet of the restoration, dealing with latter-day concerns and so forth, but very interesting. it can be interpreted several ways, but in this case, it seems to me like it's pretty straightforward. It's Isaiah 5, verse 3. No, yeah, 8, sorry, chapter 5, verse 8. And it says, woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. So it seems to me that in our day, the tenor of the times is that people who have something to sell, they're wanting to give less and ask a higher price. We're right now living in a single family home that is nice, but it's still on a small lot and squunchy, quite frankly. So I'm just registering my concern that I think the area and the way it is already a situation, I would encourage not changing the zoning.
Thank you, sir. Dual, your card says number 5. You got something besides number 5? Dual bond or dial bond?
Mr.
Besides item 5? What is it? Okay, come on up.
I would respectfully ask the city council and the mayor to consider senior citizens when you're making changes in the city. How is that going to affect them with noise, with pollution, with traffic, and with the cost of their properties? Also consider the people that are handicapped, that can't walk across large streets fast or have to use wheelchairs. Consider them when you're making decisions.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that's all I have, council. We'll go ahead and go on to item 4, conflicts and disclosures. Counselor, is there anything on the agenda tonight that you need to disclose a conflict of interest with? I need to disclose a conflict with item 3 and item 4. My wife is a den leader with the Cub Scout Pack 407. And the firm I'm employed with is employed with the rezoning application on item number 4. Any other conflicts that need to be disclosed? Okay, thank you, council. Moving into working agenda, we don't have no public hearing scheduled tonight. On the consent agenda, you have before you, council, the claims and minutes. The minutes from the March 22nd, 2023 regular city council meeting and the claims through April 12th. Also on the calendar, the work meeting is next week on April 19th, and our next city council meeting will be on April 26th. Is there any question relative to the consent agenda? If there's no question, I'd look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Krista and a second by Denny to approve the consent agenda as presented. This is a money item. Roll call vote. Ben?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Jarrett?
Aye.
The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, council. Item B1, introduction of the Santa Clara City royalty and update. Monica? I saw you. Oh, there they are.
I'm only going to talk for a minute and let them talk a little bit more.
Need your name and address.
I'm Monica Bracken, 758 Country Place Court, and they're almost done with their reign. And we had a lot of, you guys were busy, so this is their first time and they're almost done in a couple months. So we figure we better get them in here. They're going to be busy with the county fair coming up. Mayor Rosenberg, you're the ground marshal, and they'll be there along your side in the parade. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Anna Still. I'm a senior at Snow Canyon High School and I'm Miss Santa Clara. Hi, I'm Gwendolyn Dooley. I'm also a senior at Snow Canyon High School and I'm first attendant.
Hi, I'm Ali Souza, and I am a freshman at Snow Canyon Middle, and I am the second attendant.
We feel like we know you already. I've been working with you all year, but I appreciate you taking the time to bringing them to council and doing the formal introduction. You ready for the parade? They told me they haven't given me my assignments yet for next week, but I got a hunch I might be taking the whole week off work. So, but we appreciate everything you guys have stood for this year and all the activities, the help that you've been with Swiss Days in particular and the other events. And want to congratulate you again on your, carrying out your duties so well. And what do we know when the pageant is, Monica?
It's June 15th. So yeah, it's coming up pretty quick. So, but they've done a great job. They've been doing things throughout the year, not only Swiss Days, the Veterans Memorial, when they did the wreaths across America, and they have a lot of things because we're the highlight city at the county fair that they have a lot of things they've been involved with because of that. So, and their float is ready. It's going to be amazing.
Awesome.
So they're great girls.
Yes, they are. Council, any questions, comments?
I'd like to know the schedule next week for the fair.
I think Lena's got it.
Yeah, for them. So I know you got a busy week over there.
So Tuesday's the parade, and then they have, well, actually they start tomorrow with the rodeo. They have the rodeo for the youth, special needs rodeo on Saturday, and the regular rodeo on Saturday night. So they are already starting with the county fair. And then Tuesday's the parade. They have to be there for the ribbon cutting. And then they have a princess showcase on Thursday night, and they're going to be yodeling for their showcase.
Can we get a demonstration of that?
Soundtrack, so.
And then they're helping with the concert on Friday night, and it's senior ball on Saturday, so they're off duties on Saturday.
Great. Well, thank you, ladies. We do appreciate you representing the city as well as you have. And we'll see you at the fair.
Oh, wait.
Oh, man.
Okay, item B2, discussion and action regarding selection of a new judge. Brock?
Yeah, so roughly a year ago, 10 months ago, we started this process as we were alerted to that Judge Ken Armstrong was due to retire due to age, and that we needed to decide whether to keep our justice court and select a new judge or to do away with our justice court. Council, you guys selected to keep the justice court. So we started the process with the administrative office of the courts, roughly April, May of last year. And so there's in the fall, 12 applicants were submitted to a committee, which narrowed it down to, I think it was 6, but we then interviewed 6 applicants, and we narrowed that down to, I believe, 4 names, which were then submitted to the mayor. The mayor then was able to bring the name before you for selection of the judge. That judge that was selected by Mayor Rosenberg was Jake Graff, who, as you heard, is the current Justice Court Judge of Washington City and Hilldale City at the time. So we would present to you Jake Graff to be appointed as the Justice Court Judge of Santa Clara City. And following that would be, since he's already a sitting judge, all he would need to do is to take an oath of office, and we'll be able to get right to work. So.
And Jake kind of floated to the top based on some of the recommendations of the committee. And the fact he was a sitting judge, serving 2 communities in Southern Utah. Now, after interviewing him, I felt really good about the selection. And I think as far as meshing with our existing justice court staff, I don't think there'll be any problems that way. He is the substitute judge now for this court. And so he's very familiar with our clerks and with our facilities and stuff. And so he could really hit the ground running, and it's kind of the reasons why I went that way. So I'm excited that he accepted. There was some question whether he would or not, but I'm excited that he did. And I think it'll be a positive addition to the court going forward. But we do need your approval of that appointment.
Yes.
I would move that we approve the appointment of Jake Graff to be our Justice Court Judge.
I'll second.
Motion by Denny and a second by Jarrett to approve Jake Graff as the new Santa Clara Ivans Justice Court Judge. Any question on that motion, council? Let's do roll call. Jarrett?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Thank you, council. I was hoping he'd be here, but I haven't seen him unless he's hiding under a chair out there somewhere. But he'll do a good job in that role. Item B3, discussion and action approving donation to Cub Scout Pack 407. Council, as you guys are aware, the city has been helping sponsor Cub Scout 407 for the last few years. This Cub Scout Pack serves the communities of Santa Clara and Ivans. It's the feeder Cub Scout group for the Boy Scout troop that functions in Ivans. The city helps sponsor that troop, and Santa Clara helps sponsor the Cubs. They have requested $500 to help with the program. There's a letter in your packet from the Cub Master. Brock, I miss anything?
No, just that noted in the staff report, though, at least we do budget funds aside for donations when people come and ask. So it is within the budget.
Any questions, council?
I think it's money well spent, so I move that we approve the donation of $500 to the Cub Scout Pack 407.
Second.
A raise?
Big.
The whole side of the room.
Pick one.
Yeah.
Pick one. I got a motion by Jarrett and a second by Krista to approve $500 donation to Cub Scout Pack 407. Any question on that motion, council? It is a money item. Roll call vote. Jarrett?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Thank you, council. Item number B4, discussion and action to consider rezoning a property at approximately 2276 Arrowhead Trail, parcel SC-6-2-22-4148, SC9-A-12, and SC9-A-18, described as 1.48 acres in total. Split Rock Construction is proposing to rezone the property from R110 Single Family Residential Zone and Planned Development Commercial EDC Zone to R16 Single Family Residential Zone and approve ordinance 2023-09. Rezoning is part of the process to allow for proposed single family residential subdivision. Jim?
Thanks, Mayor. Brock, could you pull up the concept plan? I believe it's just sort of towards the end of the report. There we have it. As the mayor indicated, this is a rezoning of property. The council will recall that a general plan amendment for this property was reviewed by the Planning Commission on February 23rd of 2023. That item was then approved by the City Council on March 8th of 2023. This placed a medium density residential land use district or designation on the property in support of the proposed R16 single family zone. The property is kind of an irregular shape, unique shape of property. It's just under 1.5 acres. And the R16 is a good solution for an infill project here to get some residential housing in place in an area of the city that could use some new housing. As far as the neighborhood response, we sent notices to all property owners within 300 feet. The subject property was also posted with signs as per state code. No responses have been received by city staff prior to the public hearing with the Planning Commission or this meeting this evening with the City Council. The general plan talks about medium density residential. It states single family structures and townhomes on small lots with a density range of 3 to 12 dwelling units per acre. The Proposed rezoning application would allow for single-family homes on lots of 6,000 square feet or greater. The proposed use of property is encouraged by the general plan. Now, for rezoning consideration, we have requirements in Chapter 1718-090 of City Code. We have items A through H, and this meets the criteria of all of those items. And so this is a new rezoning application. Previously, the applicant had petitioned the city for a general plan amendment and rezoning to allow for man cave, commercial type units across the street from the single family neighborhood. That was reviewed in a public hearing by the planning commission and a public meeting with the council, with that application being denied. So at this time, city staff and legal counsel have discussed the proposed rezoning application. We believe that the proposed rezoning is in harmony with the existing single family neighborhood. Previously, we recommended that the applicant consider developing the site as a small lot, single family subdivision per the recently adopted R16 zone. The applicant has elected to submit and pursue that particular application. We meet state statute section 109A205 for the requirements for rezoning of property. We went through the noticing requirements that have all been met. So state requirements and statute have been met. As far as a city staff and a recommendation, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 23rd, 2023, and forwarded a recommendation of approval to the City Council. City staff recommends that the City Council review the submitted rezoning application to determine if the application is complete. If the application is determined to be complete, city staff would recommend that the City Council consider this application subject to the following conditions. And we have condition 1 addresses that section of code for rezonings. Item 2 is the applicant will be required to go through a subdivision review process, both preliminary and final plat, with the following findings. First, that the rezoning is compliant with the Santa Clara City General Plan, section 3.4.1, residential land uses, medium density residential. Second, that the R16 single family zone allows for homes on lots of 6,000 square feet or larger. And third, that the properties to the north are zoned PDC, properties to the south and west are zoned R110, with the R16 being an appropriate transition in between these land uses. That's the staff report and our comments on this item. I'm here for questions, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim, council?
Jim, I'm just curious on these smaller lots, what's going to be the average size of home on something that size, like a 0.14 acres?
Yeah, you know, they're likely going to be slab on grade. And so a 2-story would probably be between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet. And a rambler would probably be between 1,500 and 2,000 square feet. I have seen R16 lots. Now, if you go look at the concept plan, he shows some 6s, but he shows some 8s and some 10s. Right. So there's a variety of lot sizes. I've seen 3-car garages on the R16 lots. So that can be designed that way if they go with a little bit smaller home. But the smaller lots will probably have a little bit smaller home with a 2-car garage, while the larger lots will probably have a 2-story home with a 3-car garage. The 2 flag lots, now it's just a concept. It has to go through an approval process. Those are large. They're 10,000 square feet plus. So there will be a couple large homes perhaps on this site as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
And just following up on that, this is a concept plan.
Yes.
That they potentially could come in and change that and
they could
make them all 6,000 to 7,000 square foot lots if under the zoning that's being requested.
Right. But with this concept plan, they're telling us that would be the layout up to 7 lots, which is 4.74 units per acre. Now, they could do more lots, but they have to be single family. You know, this is all single family, minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. If they do some smaller lots, they may have to put in a public road with a cul-de-sac rather than the larger flag lots in the back if they try to get more density. So there are some give and take on the design depending on what they want. So.
Mayor, can I make a comment just to supplement what's been discussed? I think it's worth pointing out that this zone change is a little bit different from the one that's next on the agenda, in that this one is being changed to an R16, which is which does not require a specific layout, as has been pointed out. So the city council will actually see a specific layout on this at the preliminary plat stage. The next item on the agenda, of course, I know you're aware, is a little bit different because they're requesting a planned development zone. It requires a much more extensive project plan be included with the zoning application, which, if approved, actually becomes part of the vested zoning, and they would have to build according to that plan. Whereas this one, you're just approving the zoning. They could come back with a completely different plan at preliminary plat stage, and that would be okay. And you would consider it at that point. So just, I know you're all aware of it, but in case there's questions about that.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, and a follow-up on that, we're dealing with two different zones as well. So
Very much
part of the
so.
part of the reason of the zone changes, we have a split zone right down the middle of this property. So
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, council?
Is this all, oh, it is all the one parcel. It fills up the whole thing. Okay, that was
Yes.
fine.
I didn't see the applicant here. Doesn't need to be, but I would have given him a shot, so. Any,
They attended planning commission. I don't know why they're not here this evening.
yeah, I just don't see him out there. Okay, well, any discussion, council? Questions? If there's no questions, then I would look for a motion.
I'll make the motion that we approve the rezoning of property at approximately 2276 Arrowhead Trail, subject to staff conditions and recommendations. And approve ordinance 2023-09.
second,
Got a motion by Lena and a second by Ben to approve the rezoning of the property at approximately 2276 Arrowhead Trail, 1.48 acres, from R110 single family residential and planned development commercial PDC zone to R16 single family residential, and approve ordinance 2023-09. With subject to the conditions as stated. Any question on that motion, council? This is an ordinance. Roll call vote. Ben?
aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Jarrett?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, council. Item B5 is discussion and action to consider a proposed rezoning of property at 400 East Patricia Drive and Pioneer Parkway parcels SC-SB-90-A-2 and SC-SB-90-A-4-B, described as 18.09 acres. The applicant, Clayton Levitt, is proposing to rezone the property from R110 single family residential and to PDR to allow for proposed residential project will include single family homes, multifamily townhomes, and amenities, and approve ordinance 2023-10. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I just want to make sure that my presentation is clear and concise for the council as well as the members of the public who are here this evening. The applicant for this project is Clayton Levitt with Oak Creek. And Mr. Levitt is requesting to rezone the property at 400 East and Patricia Drive and Pioneer Parkway. The applicant has been working with city staff on this project for several months. This item has gone to multiple or several TRC meetings. And we did have a couple of discussions during a work meetings with the council last year. One on May 4th of 2022 and another one on June 1st of 2022. So several of the residents that are here this evening may have attended those discussions. And so what I want to do, and this is good, we'll start with the project plan. And I'd like to talk about that for a moment. So the project plan is required for a petition to rezone property to a PD zone by the city. In this case, it's PDR. So that requires plan development residential, that requires that a lot of information be submitted to the city to go through the application process to see if the project could meet the criteria or be accepting of a PDR zone. So in this case, the applicant is proposing a residential unit count of 144 units, which you see before you, on just over 18 acres, 18.09 acres. This equates to a density of 7.96 units per acre. This plan that you see before you includes a total of 69 single-family lots or pad lots and 75 multifamily townhome units. So the breakdown is 52% multifamily townhome, 48% single-family lot or pad lot. The applicant has not requested a density bonus for the project. As you know, the zoning district allows a bonus up to 12 units per acre if certain measures are met. If we could slide down to the phasing plan, which is next to the page 2 on this one. It's just directly below it. There we go. So the applicant's proposing multiple phases for the project. You see phase 1A. Phase 1A faces Patricia Drive. That includes 14 single-family lots. Lots 1 through 7 are approximately 8,000 square feet, with lots 8 through 14 being 6,000 square feet. And then phase 1B that you see there is on the interior. Those are the narrow pad lots, and that includes public streets, some pad lots, and the first portion of the amenity, which includes the his and her restroom, the pool and spa and outdoor gathering or deck area.
Jim, do you want to
yes.
reference the colors maybe when you reference the phases?
Yeah. So phase 1A and 1B are kind of almost the same. So we've got a little bit of a red color. Hopefully I'm not colorblind here. 1B is more of a salmon color. Phase 2 is yellow. Phase 2 will include single family pad lots and the 3 pickleball courts. Phase 4 is definitely blue. That includes single family pad lots with public roads and an access to Pioneer Parkway, as well as an open area or open space amenity. Maybe I forgot, is that phase 3 on the bottom, the brown? I'm sorry, phase 3, or is that 5?
It's 3.
It's 3. Phase 3 is kind of a mustard color. That includes all single family pad lots with public roads, some of which would back on to 400 East. Phase 5 is green. That includes multifamily townhome units with a public street system. Phase 6 includes all multifamily dwelling units. And then phase 7 includes multifamily townhomes with another green area, gazebo, pavilion, things of that nature. Next, I'd like to go to the building elevations themselves. I believe it says Pioneer Point Plan 1 would be the first building elevation. And so this is a proposed Rambler style home, single family home that could be built in the project in both the single family lot areas and the standard pad lot areas. If you scroll down on this page, you can see other elevations. You see the front, and then the next page would be the sides or rear. And then I believe there's a 3D, just you know, what it would look like if you're out there. Let's go to the next elevation. It's a 2-story elevation. This is also proposed by the applicant. So there's a 2-story home. This could be put on the standard lots as well as standard single family lots, as well as the larger pad lots. You can see the building elevations, the fronts, the sides, and then I believe there's a 3D elevation at the bottom. So that's a good size home. That particular home, well, just taking it back, the single family homes would range in size from 1,500 to 3,000 square feet. So we'll just leave it at that. Now let's go to the pictures themselves. They're the single family pad lot narrow homes. So here's an example of a unit that could go on one of the narrow pad lots that you saw on the project plan. This is one building design. This home's approximately 25 feet wide. The garage door is 16 feet with 2 feet on either way for a 20 by 20 garage, and then the door opening to the home. Let's go to the next home. This is another example of a single family pad lot home, roughly the same dimensions. These 4 units that are proposed are approximately 1,700 to 1,850 square feet in size. So it is a 2-story. That does not include the garage. That's the livable area. We've got another one. Let's go to the next narrow pad lot home. So very similar, and I believe we have one more. Okay. And that's the last unit type. So there's a total of 4. let's go to the Bedford fourplex building. So this is a single level townhome. These are proposed to back onto 400 East, more on the north end of the project according to the project plan. We could shift back and forth, but I'll explain it the best I can. You can see that this unit is a little bit smaller unit. I believe they average 1,100 square feet. They come with a 1-car garage, but a 2-car driveway. So there are 3 parking spaces for that particular unit. Let's go ahead and go to the 2-story townhomes. This is an example of a 2-story townhome. In this instance, it's a 6-plex. This would be a front elevation as well as a rear elevation with the rear loaded garage. And you can see on the ends, they're showing a Rambler style unit. They're doing some of these in the middle of the project. I believe we have one that's a 4-plex as well, the next elevation. And that includes all 2-story townhomes. I believe they have some 6-plexes in the project that would be like this too, but they do have other 6-plexes that employ the Rambler single level on the sides. These units themselves, the 1-story townhomes that we looked at, the color drawing first, those will be 22 feet in height. That's what's proposed. And then the 2-story townhomes are proposed at approximately 27 feet in height. If we can go back to the project plan. The project plan shows all those areas. So the area in yellow, those are the 1-story townhomes, the yellow units that back onto 400 East. All yellow are the 1-story townhome elevation that you saw. The buildings 75 through 79 and 74 through 70, flip that. Those are the ones that are a 2-story townhome in the middle with the Rambler unit on the edges. And then you can see the units in the middle by the large, well, to the north of the middle. The green area, as well as units that back onto Tuscany Drive. Those are all 2-story townhome style. Let's go ahead and go to the landscape plan. The applicant has submitted a landscape plan showing the amenity areas. The proposed landscape percentage is 33.83%, 6.12 acres of open space. The code requires a minimum open space percentage of 30%, so it does slightly exceed that. You can see the landscaping that would be, shown for the homes themselves as well as the green areas. So you've got the open space areas in the middle of the project if you come off of 400 East, as well as the middle of the project coming off of Pioneer Parkway. So the first pod off of Pioneer Parkway, you have a green space area with homes that back onto it. The single family pad lots would back onto that green space. In the middle of the project off of 400 East, you have the pool, the restrooms, the outdoor areas for sitting in the sun or having lunch, a spa, the 3 pickleball facility court. And then on the northern edge, you have another green space that includes, outdoor recreation. And, there would be barbecues and a covered gazebo and other space. The plan also does include trails on the interior. So what you would have here is individuals that could potentially live here would have the ability to walk on these trails to get to the open space areas as needed. And so the project amenities, they've got a good amenity package that's been submitted as part of the project. I wanted to show you on this drawing right here, you see on the bottom, it says 8-foot asphalt trail along 400 East Street. That is required along 400 East. That's part of our Trails Master Plan, 2018 Master Plan, and a public trail is required. It would be a multi-purpose trail. And this will tie in with the existing section off along the trail along 400 East, along the frontage and tie into the Tuscany project itself. As far as the landscape plan goes, if we could go to the next sheet on this one. You can see individual landscape plans, in this case for some pad lots to the right, and then the multifamily townhomes to the left. We do have a water conservation and water efficiency and conservation ordinance in place. They are required to meet that standard. That limits the areas of lawn. That also requires a drip system to individual plants. So you see a lot of xeriscape, drought tolerant type of design, low water use. Outdoor water use will be via secondary system. So a secondary water line or tie-in would be required for outdoor water use for this particular project. If we could go back to the project plan, I just want to talk about the public road cross-section that is required for this project. The roads that you see on the interior of this project are public roads. They're shown with a 45-foot public cross-section. This includes 30 feet of asphalt, 2.5 feet of curb and gutter on either side with a 5-foot sidewalk on each side, allowing for residents or the public to walk on these streets and also connect up to the individual pathways to the open space areas. There are 2 private driveway areas proposed on the south end of the project, and those would feed to the way they show it, the units 38 and 39, as well as 59 and 60. That's just a 26-foot private driveway that would be HOA owned and maintained. The rest of the streets are all public, and that is what is required for the city. As far as parking, they have submitted a project plan, and it shows 281 parking spaces for the 75 multifamily townhome units, which equates to 3.75 parking spaces per unit. Also in the middle, and to the left of the pool and open amenity area, they have 20 additional parking spaces adjacent to the amenity area for people to park there if they want to utilize the amenity if they decide not to walk to that space. Our code requires 2 parking spaces per unit, 1 covered and 1 uncovered. They exceed the parking requirements in the code. And then each of the single family lots and pad lots have been designed to include a 2-car garage with a 2-car driveway. So those each have 4 spaces that have been shown on the plan. As far as the utilities, we talked about a secondary water connection, which will be required for use. That's all I have to bring up on that. We do have a soils report that was submitted by the applicant. I believe we have a copy of that that we could show the public. That was done. It's a geotechnical report done by Applied Geotechnical. It's a subsurface investigation. It appears that the expansive clay was encountered in multiple site locations, both on the north and south portion of the site. However, the site is suitable to support residential slab on grade construction, provided that the report recommendations are implemented during construction. So that was the recommendation from the geotechnical report. We also have a traffic study that was submitted. Traffic impact study, a TIS, was done by Hales Engineering, and that was submitted for the property. 2 project accesses were assumed, which resulted in acceptable level of service at those intersections. And however, a 3rd access was also considered on Patricia Drive. The design or project plan you see before you does not have a 3rd access. That was discussed in the original TIS. Since that report was submitted, the project has been redesigned to include a row of single-family homes along Patricia Drive without an access to the interior of the site. So the 14 standard single-family lots, that area has been put in. Those lots have been proposed rather than a 3rd access up to Patricia Drive. The applicant has submitted a project narrative. He's also submitted a colors and materials board, which I will let him discuss with the city council if you'd like to know a little bit more about the colors and materials on the project. A block wall will be provided, will be required, a 6-foot solid block privacy wall along Pioneer Parkway and 400 East. That's just a requirement in the zoning ordinance for a PDR project. I want to talk about the notices and the neighborhood response. We sent notice to property owners within 300 feet of the subject property as per state code. City staff received some phone calls and emails that were forwarded to the Planning Commission prior to that public hearing. The public hearing was well attended. A copy of the draft Planning Commission minutes has been attached. So those minutes have been attached for council review and consideration. We had 26 individuals speak during the public hearing, so a good amount of time was spent. 2 individuals were allowed to speak a second time as well. So that information has been shared. And as part of your packet, we also have a petition that was submitted by the residents. Our city recorder has verified the individuals and the addresses for the petition. So that's in your packet as well. We also have, not here in the portfolio, but we have a copy of the general plan that maybe we could bring that up after the project report. There was the general plan map, I believe, included in the same document that had the petition and the minutes. I just want to speak to that briefly, and the applicant may want to speak to that before finishing. So the general plan in this area shows a medium density residential land use designation. And the proposed plan development residential PDR zone complies with the intent of the general plan. In this section, it states townhomes, multi-unit buildings, and small lot single-family structures on small lots. Accessory dwelling units, ADUs, are encouraged. Medium-density neighborhoods have tree-lined local street grid and interconnected pedestrian circulation system. And then it talks about the density range from 3 to 12 units per acre. So that's really broad. That is a really broad density range. I mean, the current zone R110 would meet that. The proposed zone to PDR at 8 units per acre would meet that. Both fall within that range. The proposed project plan and rezone application includes small lot single-family homes, townhomes, and amenities for the residents. The proposed use of property is encouraged by the general plan. And you can see from the general plan above, you see Pioneer Parkway, you see 400 East, and he's zooming in. Nicholas, yeah, Patricia, that is the color of that medium orange color does designate the medium density residential land use on the property. And the general plan was adopted by the city in 2014. So that is the land use. So we talked about the general plan. I want to talk about the rezoning consideration again. Chapter 17-18090 of our city code provides standards of review for the city when reviewing a rezoning of property. Now, there are a certain set of criteria, items A through H. City staff review indicates that it meets this criteria with the exception of item C. Item C says, are there substantial reasons why the property cannot or should not be used as currently zoned? Okay, the property is zoned R110. The applicant has decided to petition the city for a rezone to planned development residential rather than developing as per the R110 zone. And he has the right to do that. Now, state code considerations, section 109A205, we've met state code statute for rezoning of property. We've done all the public hearing notices and posted the property. We've determined that all state code requirements have been met with this application. Under our city staff recommendation, I want to let the council know that the Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 23rd of 2023. A motion was made to recommend approval to the city council. However, the vote on the motion ended in a 3-3 tie. No other substitute motion was made or voted on. Therefore, no recommendation was provided by the Planning Commission on this item. City staff recommends that the city council review the submitted rezoning application and project plan to determine if the application is complete. If the application is determined to be complete, city staff would recommend that the city council consider the application subject to the following conditions. So if we have the conditions in place, if it is found to be complete. Now we have a total of 14 conditions. Item number 14 talks about the rezoning, and we've highlighted item C. That's the one that says there are not substantial reasons why the property cannot or should not be used as currently zoned. And I've indicated that the applicant intends to do a PD subdivision with single family and multifamily townhomes as per the MDR land use designation of the general plan. So again, he's elected to petition the city for a rezoning of property rather than develop at R110. And then we have the following findings: that the rezoning is compliant with the Santa Clara City General Plan, section 3.4.1, residential land uses, medium density residential. 2, that the MDR land use designation allows for townhomes, multi-unit buildings, and small single-family structures on small lots. And third, that other properties in the immediate vicinity, north and south of the site, are zone plan development residential PDR. That is what I have for you, Mayor and Council, this evening. The applicant, Clayton Levitt, is here, and he may have others representing him as well. And I'll sit down now. Our city attorney, Matt Entz, is here as well for questions. Thank you.
Before you sit down, Jim, any questions, council, for Jim?
I have one just clarity, and the applicant could answer it as well. So we'll fence, there's a block wall on Pioneer Parkway and 400 East.
That's correct.
On Patricia there, you'll have traditional standard lots with sidewalk.
Front loaded. If we went back to the project plan, yes, the lots that are shown on Patricia are front loaded, so no wall. And then the multifamily townhomes on Tuscany, I didn't get into that detail, but that's something that could be discussed with the applicant. The driveways are fronting onto Tuscany. Okay. And then the front of the home, the outdoor patio or outdoor space with the courtyard, is facing the interior of the project, the public street itself. So there's no walls along Tuscany. They're just 400 and potentially along Pioneer.
There would be, going back to the comment earlier about the school, proximity to the school, there will be sidewalk and pedestrian access
Yes.
around the entire property. You've got the
Yes.
8-foot walkway there, and then there will be sidewalks on both sides.
Curb, gutter, sidewalk. And one of the things that was brought up by the planning commission because of some of the changes is perhaps on that very northeast end where the detention basin is and with that last lot, there should be another path that ties into the townhome path going down around that unit there, providing access directly to Patricia if a school is built at some time. Now, we do have 3 access points from in between the townhome buildings themselves onto Tuscany. You can see those sidewalks, but there isn't a direct access to Patricia because of the row of the 14 single family homes. But it could tie into the walkway adjacent to 127, work its way around 15 and then tie into Patricia, perhaps along that property line. So
You have the 2 street accesses and then pedestrian access. So three of the 4 sides, and then sidewalk and
yes.
pathway around the entire.
And public streets with sidewalks on both sides. And that's what's needed and necessary to create the walkability and allow the residents to feel comfortable and go outside and walk where they need to go rather than always getting in a car. So.
Any other questions for Jim?
I had one on you didn't go over this, but the setbacks on the interior, on the driveways, I think one of the homes, maybe the pad lots had 15-foot, or is it 20-foot to garage?
They do. And I didn't go through that. Thank you for asking that question. So the pad lots, the typical pad lot and the narrow pad lot, they all have a front setback to living area of 15 feet with a driveway depth of 20 feet. So it's 15 and 20. So the garage is at 20 feet, the living space is at 15, allowing for a 20-foot driveway from the back of sidewalk. That is correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions for Jim, council? Thank you, Jim.
Mayor, before you turn it over to the applicant, can I just say one thing? I mentioned this in the planning commission meeting, so I just wanted to repeat it here. And I know the city council is already aware of this, but when we have a zone change application, it's considered an amendment to our zoning ordinances. And any kind of an amendment to an ordinance is a legislative decision. It's a decision where you, sitting as the legislative body of the city, you have broad discretion to decide on the application. You can take into account in your decision-making process, a broad spectrum of whatever factors and considerations you think are important for making this decision. And especially so where we have a situation like this, where the existing zoning complies with the general plan and the zoning that's being sought by the applicant also complies with the general plan. So it very much becomes a question of what you as the city council think is best for the city and how you weigh all the various considerations that are before you. So thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Matt. Clayton, do you have anything to add?
I do.
I do.
Just need your name and address for the record.
Clayton Levitt, it's 2499 River Circle, Santa Clara, Utah. I think it was back in May, we first had our first meeting with a work meeting with Santa Clara. And our first kind of vision for our property was how can we do some housing that's not really being addressed, and do some more affordable homes in the neighborhood. And we thought it was a great plan, but in talking with city staff and also with members of the city council, it was stressed to us that we also needed to have single family homes in our project plan. And there needed to be some transitions in the density between the residents. It's a lot easier to zone a piece of property when you don't have all four sides of you surrounded by neighbors. But we feel like we've listened to the neighbors around us. We like them, are concerned about the multifamily to the north and building single family right next to it, just like they would really not like to live next to the multifamily. We don't necessarily like to build single family homes right next to multifamily. But we understand it's important to have transitions in density. That's probably one of the main reasons why we needed to do a plan development, a comprehensive plan development community that addressed the plan development project to the north, Tuscany at Cliff Rose, the plan development project to the south, Village on the Heights, and the Santa Clara West single family development to the east. Even though single family exists to the west, it's in Ivans, we still needed to consider them as well, in our view. So that's why we came up with this. It's a pretty intense, comprehensive plan that has a variety, a diversity in it, which I think is really good for the community, for the neighborhood. We've buffered the residents in Santa Clara that are mostly concerned here tonight with the R1 that's to the east. We've done and tried to mirror that exact same thing, and not just right across the street, but also with additional single family pads. Same thing with the project to the south, which is about, I think, up to close to 5 units per acre in Village of the Heights. We did that very same thing with them, trying to match what they've done. We did talk to some folks in Ivans. We didn't hold a bunch of meetings, but we did talk to some. And when they first saw our plan back in June of last year, they were concerned about the height. They didn't want their views to be jeopardized. And they wanted single family. And so we felt like a really good meeting in the middle was to do just all single level homes that you see up here. I think is it 80 through 94? My eyes are a little, I don't know if you can blow that up or not, but right through there. So they wouldn't be as much affected like they were affected with Tuscany and Ocatello to the north of us. We've listened and tried to be sensitive to the neighbors around us. Our townhomes, let me see if there's anything else I can talk to you about this plan. I think we've covered everything pretty much, unless you have questions on the plan. But what we decided to do, at one point, we were going to face some of those townhomes toward 400 East, and we've elected to match what was across the street and put that wall all across 400 East, and then a block wall as well along Pioneer that really matches. These two streets are 66 foot wide on 400 East and 80 foot wide on Pioneer. So for Santa Clara, they're our main arterial streets. They're going to be busy, and they're going to be able to hold a lot more traffic. So we felt that that was the best way to handle that. If you look at our plans on our townhomes, we've got to do something nicer than that's been built previously to the north of us, and to the northeast of us. And so we've designed our plans with courtyards. So there's some private space. It's more inviting. It's unlike the other projects that are to the north of us. We want this to be a community that neighbors get to know one another. The front yards in that park area are facing the park and the amenities. We want there to be a sense of community. And we want to put in some really nice amenities that are going to attract the top residents in Santa Clara. I don't know what the top are, but I guess there's a view that some of the residents aren't at the top. So that's, any questions on that plan? I think I've hit most everything. Up in the northeast, there's a detention area. We haven't figured that out yet. I'm hoping it gets a lot smaller so we can do more open space there and do more additional park. It's about a quarter acre of additional open space that's not figured in our total count of open space. So we have a lot of open space. I think that's important in this development. And we have smaller pad lots because we're not trying to, well, there's several things kind of pushing that, but one of them is our soils report. One of them is we'd rather see, there's talk of more density, more, a lot more usage of the existing park there. Well, if you can see the great open space that we have here and playground area and pavilions, and we're going to have a resort style pool with 3 pickleball courts. We're going to be offering our residents here, the public, some very nice amenities. We want to hold certain things and certain events to bring the neighborhood together. Maybe outdoor movies, events, and those type of things. And as you can see, it's going to be open so the neighbors can get to know one another instead of being closed in. If we could turn to maybe the next one with our, maybe we could turn to the park landscape so we can show kind of those a little better.
I do have a question on the plan.
Yeah.
If you don't mind addressing, this didn't come up in the planning commission. I was just curious. So it looks like units 15 through 69, like they're not individual lots, right? You just own the land underneath your house if you buy one of those units. Is that correct?
Yeah. 15 through, yeah.
And so how does that work like with a backyard? Are there walls between the units? Could you put a playground back there for your kids, or could anyone walk in your backyard, or how does that work exactly?
Well, typically, what we would like to see done is to keep the backs opened. So for example, well, depends on what area you're talking about because each of these are different. So Like, for
Just
example,
yeah, pick one.
15, we'd probably have some type of private area that would just be part of the, come off the actual building itself.
Okay.
So they could have their own private space. We had some additional photos, but apparently we didn't get they weren't included in our packet here, but,
There were a lot of photos.
Yeah.
And you have many.
yeah, and I don't know, maybe you'd seen those. We gave you a lot to look at, but,
But
it would have been in that packet that you would have seen, that kind of shows the backyard. We don't want to enclose the backyard. We just want maybe some privacy sidewalls is kind of what we're thinking there.
It might be the landscape plan. When you go down below on the landscape plan, there's
Yeah, that-
visual yards, I think.
That too.
That might be
And
it.
we also had a picture or
Okay.
two of
Oh,
kind of a backyard, but yeah, if you could go to our landscape plan, that'd be great.
Jared, generally it's owned under the pad, correct? You own a pad. You have limited common area, which is your part around your home, which is still managed by the HOA, but you maintain. So those would be fenced off. And then you have common area that's common to the entire neighborhood. I don't know if that's what's being proposed.
Go one more. Or
Yeah, so I'm just curious, like if someone would want to plant some trees, like some fruit trees, or they want to put in a playground for their kids, or they wanted to have some raised garden boxes, something like that. Is that possible on these lots where you don't own the land right around your house?
yeah, so you can see here, I don't know if you can blow that up a little bit, but our proposal would be, and if you could scoot it to the
Can't slide it.
can't slide, darn it. To have a patio, some green space, and then, some open space. So if people wanted to put a garden in, they could do a garden. They might have a dog or something. They got to have a place for their animal as well, be able to enjoy that backyard privacy type scenario. We'd probably keep the sides right from the building. We'd probably go back 8 to 10 feet. I think 10 feet is what we've been talking about. And that's kind of what, some of them are going to be larger than that because we have a variety of sizes as far as the rear yards are concerned.
the pad lots themselves, it's another clarification. There's 16 feet of separation between the pad lots and those side yards to allow for some space, to allow for a garage pad, to allow for utilization. So homes are right on top of each other. So
But if you don't own the land, you can still put a garage pad on there? Only with approval?
Yes.
It'd be part of the
So-
HOA.
yeah, I mean, a driveway for a third vehicle.
So to make it simpler, my house is identical to this. And so if I want to do anything on my side or rear yard, I just go to the HOA and request approval to do it.
Yeah, generally it's all covered in the CCNRs, but that's generally how they're called out as you own your pad. There's common area and then there's limited common area, and the limited common area is the part that's the 8-foot setbacks on the sides up that's being proposed, and so.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why we made the space between the residents wider, so there could be an extra pad put in there. We do have some homes that we have designed that are internal dwelling units that are there, so it makes sense to be able to have that extra space as well in that instance.
Sorry, can I interrupt for just a minute? Jim, on that, in those IADUs and the parking requirement, do those fit in this plan?
Yes, so an individual single-family unit, whether it's a multifamily townhome or a single-family home, is required to have 2 parking spaces, one covered, one uncovered. Each of the pad lots, which would allow for an IADU, the single family, has 4 parking spaces. So there's 2 in each driveway and a 2-car garage. And he's talked about some double deep option tandem parking. That's something that would have to be looked at, but it would meet the requirement. State code only allows us to require 1 additional parking space for an IADU.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Which in this particular situation is not restricted and can continue to increase the densities that we're talking about.
Yes, an IADU is they're mandated by the state. Single family homes, if someone wants one, we have to allow them.
Is that a negative?
It is to me.
Short-term rentals are not.
Correct. Short-term rentals are not allowed.
Okay.
An IADU has to be owner occupied. So to allow for the IADU.
We're just reading the general plan, and that's one of the things that was encouraged in the general plan was to actually do accessory dwelling units and internal accessory dwelling units. And so we thought it was a great idea as part of our plan. Okay, did we answer your question there on the? We want some flexibility and to be able for the residents to be able to enjoy the community. We want it to be kind of a maintenance-free lifestyle. People are busy. We want everything to look great, and so we want to be able to maintain all the common areas. And so it is presented in a professional way, and it looks really good. We could go one more time, one more slide down to this next one on the landscape. So this kind of shows a little better. I wish we had an elevation. We did, but it didn't. It's might have been included in your other packets of the look that we were trying to do with a very nice pool, good size pool, as you can see. Along with 3 pickleball courts. So we're trying to do something very tasteful and something that's going to be used by the residents. I think that's the number one thing in our development plan is we want usable common area that instead of just open space. And so if you look at this landscape plan, you'll be able to see more of our design and so forth as we get further along in the project. Could we go to the slide that talks or shows the general plan, please? And that was, I think, yeah, I don't probably.
There's 2 maps.
Yeah, that one there. So if you can, yeah, probably have to shrink that baby back down. So in 2013, which I think many of the residents, if not most, all the residents, there's a few might have moved in after, but a lot of the residents that have lived east of Patricia and south there, if I could go to that other one, and we'll go to this second one next. But I was hoping to just show the general, yeah, that one there. So my grandparents lived here in Santa Clara. So as a young boy, I came here often. And when I came here, there was no Santa Clara Heights. Everybody lived in the valley. And some of the residents' kids started getting older and moving on and getting married, and they needed a place to live. So guess what happened? They started building on the heights in Santa Clara and started to build and develop there, which for all intents and purposes, that's kind of what took place. As the city continued to grow, we developed Santa Clara Drive. I think there's some major decisions that needed to be made as far as where did we want this additional growth to go? And it's not coming up for some reason, the color. It might soon, but
I went back to that other one because this one was struggling.
So many exhibits.
Is it messed up?
I don't know.
So
That's why
what I hope to show the residents, oh, there you go. Right. Is do we want commercial in Santa Clara? Do we want it along Santa Clara Drive? Do we want, where do we want to concentrate the businesses and more dense, not high density, because high density is 13 to 22 units per acre, but perhaps some medium density. And if you see here in the orange, there were several meetings held in 2013. Maybe some of the residents behind me were to those meetings. It was decided, okay, if we're going to have commercial here, we don't want, we've got primarily residential R110 in the yellow. Everywhere else, let's keep the medium density on the fringes of the city on the outside. And so this plan was looked at, and one of the number one concerns in 2013 was, hey guys, we don't have enough affordable housing. Where can this go? And so that's why you see that corridor, and that's why it was planned this way, was to help to support the commercial and the businesses and bringing in Harmons and so forth, and all the new businesses that are coming in. So people could not only work in Santa Clara, but also could live in Santa Clara. So Village on the Heights, what it was at 13 to 16 years ago, they came in and did a plan development with some smaller lots. Many of you maybe bought those first homes in Village on the Heights. So they wanted to change the zoning, which is pretty much in a holding zone, R110, and got that approved because it was a medium dense use. The Enses didn't do anything with their project, but they did sell part of their land to actually a friend of mine that bought and developed the first phase of Tuscany at Cliff Rose. And they went and did a development there, I think was close to 10 units per acre. And so that's kind of the reason why this has come about. Is it's part of the plan. It's part of the process. And so when we looked at this project or at this property before we bought it, we looked and tried to decide, well, what can we do here? And given the residential to the east and the planned development to the north and the south. And if you want to go to the next slide, that actually shows the
Talking the one before that I was on.
The one you were on, yeah. Yeah, that one. So you can see, as we all know, Santa Clara has been a bedroom community and mostly all single family homes. But the residents, again, felt like there needed to be something more, a little more diversity, some smaller lots. And so that's where these definitions came up, is in this planning process. And so we're kind of sandwiched and put in between both of these planned developments. And I think the plan now that we've put together buffers the single family to the south, the multifamily to the north, and the R110 to the east. We've noted that over 12 out of the 18 acres of our property is devoted to single family residential. We're going to be building 1,500 to, I said in the write-up 2,900 because I was focused on the pad lots because that's how high or how big we could go there. But also it could go up to 3,500 or 4,000 on the additional lots that we have along Pioneer. I know most of the homes there are 20 years or so old in Santa Clara Heights West. We will not be detracting from their values. In fact, I think we're going to raise their values by the product and the homes that we're going to be building. I know we are. And I don't know if I can. So if you look at the big picture and the big scheme of things, there's not a lot of medium density in the Santa Clara plan. I know in the hills, that was updated on the general master plan in 2017. There was a lot more medium density that was going to go in the hills, but it's my understanding that Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that might have been placed on hold for right now.
Yeah, that's all controlled by the BLM, and the city can't really do anything about it until the BLM elects to release properties. And there's no timetable or indication that it'll ever happen.
Is that due to protecting something there?
There's about 600 acres of sensitive habitat for endangered species out there. But I think where the BLM is going now is it's become such popular recreation use that they're not inclined to dispose of it. They want to keep it for the recreation use and the endangered species protection. At least that's the feedback the city gets whenever we talk to the BLM about potential releases. Even getting the right of way for the Western Corridor is going to be kind of a struggle because of the species and the recreation uses that are established out there now.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I guess those that are involved with building and developing in southern Utah recognize what's been going on the past couple of years, and in fact, the last year since we bought the property. In the state of Utah, there continues to be a shortage of homes. The institute there at University of Utah that monitors all of this says there's about 31,000 units that we're short in the state of Utah, and there's a need for those homes. With that pressure, and also with the pressure of increased building costs and increased land costs, everything's going up. And that was before the federal government started to tinker with the monetary policy. We pulled the MLS in Santa Clara today, and right now there are 27 listings for sale that are active. There are 2 that are under $500,000. One for $499,900, and the other was for $478,000. Of those 27, there are more than 15 of them that were greater than $795,000. I looked a little closer. These are mostly not new homes, but homes that are secondary, and what's the word, Chase? Not anyway. They're already lived in homes. Just kind of escaped me there. But there were one or two one that was brand new. Existing residents is what I meant to say, that are for sale. I think there was like one or two outside the vacation homes at the Heritage Point. Help me out. Heritage Point? Yeah, okay.
Like 475, 499.
The one that was for sale is listed at 699,000. It's a brand new home, 2,100 square feet. And it's been on the market for four months. I don't have to rehearse and go over with you what the medium or the ADI, the actual average income of Washington County residents are. Anyway, I guess my point is building costs and land costs are not going to be coming down in the future. They just aren't because of this pent up demand. And we're going to continue to have a struggle with people being able to even attain owning a home. I know there was a lot of folks, and it was mentioned earlier, that signed a petition saying they didn't want a zone change. Yeah, most people don't want change. Majority of those signatures, if I looked at them, were dated back last year. There was a few that were dated in the month of March prior to us presenting to the Planning Commission and showing what our plans were. So there was a lot in opposition. Without even seeing our design layout and our plans and or elevations. This is difficult because people don't want change. They don't want smaller lots per se, even though they're single family, even though we're matching what's around us. I guess that's the key point I wanted to make is we had to change and make this a planned development community to accommodate what was surrounding us with proper density transitions for the neighbors and also for us as we build next to townhomes. Our townhomes, like I said, we want to open community, and the way we've designed these and laid them out, I don't know if we can show. Can we show a townhome plan? The fourplex is the best because it's bigger, even though it's not in color.
It's out. Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's a single family. I think it's after the picture's brought, right after.
Yeah, if you could go to the number 5 on that. It's just it shows a little bigger. Yeah, thank you. So we've attempted to, and I think the architect's done a really good job of creating more of a single family look. So they don't look cookie cutter and it's not just one right after another. And we've incorporated these balconies in the plan. We have a couple of different plans actually these are 1,400 to 1,600 square feet. We want to offer this to residents that hopefully can be able to make a first step to home ownership. You can see the courtyards that we've got in front there. So there's space that they can come out, put a barbecue and so forth. We've had some great compliments on the design and what we're bringing here. And we're okay with building next to this with our single family homes. Our single family homes are not going to be decreasing in value as a result of this product. This is going to be a step up from what we are looking at to the north of us at Tuscany. I think that's important because I think a lot of residents feel like their property values are going to go down, which isn't going to be the case in our view. They're going to go up. The detail, and maybe we can go there next, because we spent a lot of time with a interior designer. Can you show us the color palettes? As you're doing that, we're not going to do all the buildings in our townhomes the same color. So that's single family. Scroll to the townhome. It should be on there. Maybe it doesn't scroll. There you go. So you can see we're coming up with a couple of different colors that we can change, and different stone and or brick in our townhomes presentation. I wish you could see our vision. It's hard to show you this. Pictures don't really tell the story, but until they're built. But each building is going to be different stone in one building. The next building to it's going to be brick with colors that are warm, and this is a more traditional look, as the neighbors suggested that we do. And so I guess that's one of the things I wanted to point out on the townhomes. And then if you wanted to flip back to the single family homes, we didn't show you all of the single family product because could be into a lot more money trying to draw all these plans for single family, but we have 6 different variety of colors and stone. We got 3 stones here, and we have 3 brick that we're going to do in our single family. That's going to look fantastic. Yeah, there's a brick one there next door. So that kind of gives you a feel for that. You notice the roofs are all different colors too. We're trying to do more of a custom upscale community here. You can see the types of bricks we've selected. So a great variety through the neighborhood.
Yes, I believe the council received all this information in your packet.
Let's kind of wrap it up, Clay.
Okay.
Questions for the applicant, council?
I do. So I've received a number of communications from residents. I've emailed you about this. A lot of them have recurring themes, but one of them is the transiency that they're concerned about in a project that's full of a lot of rentals. So I emailed you to see if you would consider or had considered using your CCNRs to restrict a number of those residents to being only owner occupied.
In our townhome community?
Your townhomes, and I don't think that would be necessary in your R110 lots. But I did reach out to our city attorney as well, and that's something that we can consider before we would approve something like this. Is that right, Matt?
Yes, the city itself doesn't have any mechanism to regulate that or to monitor that. So, but the city council could require as a condition of approval that there be some form of a restriction on rental units in the CCNRs, which would then be up to the HOA and the property owners to enforce. If that was something that council wanted to make a condition of an approval.
So you talk a lot about community, and I feel that way too. And I think we get a lot more of that with ownership. And I also like the idea of a number of different price points for potential owners to get into the housing market rather than just rent. And so that's kind of what I'd ask you to respond to.
I think it's a great idea. In fact, it's caused us to reflect a little bit on what's going on. We heard from one of the residents at Black Rock that stated that you had all these different folks that were renting. And I think she said, and maybe staff knows, that there was a requirement there at Black Rock in their townhomes to have 50% of those owner occupied. Is that right? Does anybody know that?
I haven't verified that, but I remember that's what was stated by that person at the
meeting.
At the planning, the public hearing.
Okay, yeah. And so we got to thinking, we may want to go a step further. And in the sale of, because when we sell or we're selling our townhomes, lots of times the seller and the buyer never meet because it's gone through a realtor. But if we could put in our contract that if somebody came along and they wanted to buy this, then they changed their mind and said they wanted to rent it, that they would have to go through a developer appointed property manager to help control that situation. And instead of having several landlords through a community, absentee landlords, and letting renters have at it and do their thing, where it's our intent to hire a professional management company to oversee this entire project. And so I think we'd want to do that. And I think we would be open also to put something in our CCNRs that state in our townhomes that 50% of those need to be owner occupied.
Thank you. A rental cap.
Is that something that works for the council?
That answer your question.
That does answer my question, yes.
Okay.
Other questions, council?
Is there a reason why you don't want to stay with the R110 zone?
Yes, Danny, the biggest reason, I think the biggest reason is the buffering to the north and to the south. Those are currently zoned, were rezoned from R110 to PDR because when they came to plat, you only had, there's nothing in the zoning ordinance other than the PDR zone to do more than 3 units per acre. And so for us to buffer, we need to also be at the PDR zone, in our view, with the apartments and multifamily, they're not apartments, the multifamily to the north. So we could have as a general plan suggests, have a density buffer between us and them, as well as to the south. And we've, I think in working with the city staff and we've given those extra deep for the buffers on those locations.
One of the, as I'm sure the other council members have had lots of communication with members of the community. And 3, in my particular case, brought up the fact that they checked the zoning, what was adjacent to them and how it was going to affect them as they purchased. And because it was circled and surrounded by R110, that's why they purchased there. Now, as a city, I feel a little bit responsible that we have an R110 zone that we're really willing to back away from with really no purpose in mind other than, to me, profit. And so I would think that if you're really working to be a part of the community and wanting it to be special, the reason you're here, the reason I'm here is because of the R110 single family residential. And eventually things do change. Pioneer Parkway became a very attractive commercial area versus Santa Clara Drive. Those things are and do. And as they did a general plan amendment in 2013, I was part of a general plan in 2006. And in that 2006, there was no high density properties in Santa Clara. No apartments, which have morphed and they needed to. And at what point do we have more than what we need? And in this particular case, I hate to see 20 acres rezoned high density or medium density in a situation where other people have been planning that would not happen, that they would not have a transient area, but that they would have their single family residential area.
I appreciate that, Denny. But if people looked at our general plan and looked at where the commercial was going, and I think some of the businesses that we brought here also looked at this general plan and knew that they needed a place for their workers to be able to live and not have to commute and bring more traffic into the area. They were kind of counting on this area to be medium density as the residents of the city of Santa Clara planned. I can understand if somebody they just said, okay, this is R110, but did they really take the time to attend the hearing? A lot of them, most people don't bother to do that. And we need to be able to also have this opportunity to develop our property and not be butt right up to a multifamily to the north. I don't want to build single family homes right up next to Tuscany. It's, I don't know if you've gone by there. It's difficult.
I've been there a lot.
It's a difficult area. And that's why it's highly encouraged in the general plan to have diversity in housing. It's stated that 3 or 4 times, other than single family, 10,000-foot lots. The other key that I think is so important is we can keep this at R110 single family and not build at all. I think that's what our residents behind me would like to see, just keep it and remain vacant. Because nobody in Santa Clara can afford the $700,000 to $900,000 homes. That's what you build with a 10,000-foot lot. We've taken a lot of things into consideration, one of them being water conservation and why we planned and did the planning development. the way we've done it is so we can group on a smaller lot. You don't get much grass with the new ordinance, 800 square feet, or a smaller lot, maybe 400 or 500 square feet. And so we've put those together because times have changed so that people can actually utilize some open space, bigger areas. And also to try to listen to what our water conservancy district's telling us and getting all connections under that 0.59 acre foot of usage per residence. And it's our intent to do that through this plan. Land development zone helps us to do that as well.
Mayor, I don't have a question, but I do have a bunch of comments that when you're ready, it's
Any other questions for the applicant, and then we can
okay.
go into discussion? Questions? Thank you, Clay. Okay, discussion, council. Ben?
All right, I'll go through, try to be quick, but just hit the point. So, we've talked about this for a while. We've all heard from the residents that live around it. There are some positives on it. The positives of what we've talked. We don't have any driveways coming out on 400 East. Nothing on the Planet Parkway. We've done single family like that. That was asked over there on Patricia there. Talking affordable housing, many of you have emailed us. We've got all those. We've got quite a few of them. Affordable housing, we all say that and then we laugh because, the $200,000 townhome is no longer there. The $300,000 home is no longer there. So it's all relative to, we're looking at and Mr. Levitt's right. A single family R110 home right now is going to cost 800,000, maybe 7, but that's the reality of what it is. A townhome's going to be 4, and that's where we are today. So it is affordable when you look at the grand scheme of things comparing to other homes. Now, a half-acre lots, so that's we talked that, and I certainly don't want to downplay that there is a need for affordable housing, and what that is things have just changed in the last 3 years. When it comes, I am in favor of doing a PDR zone on this for a transition zone for exactly what we've talked about it. We've got them on the south and the north. Going from an R110 zone is basically 3 units per acre. And what's being proposed is 8 units per acre. As Jim said, a PDR zone is in the medium density residential is very vague. It's 3 to 12. It's a broad spectrum of what it can be done in there. And we've seen it all over. We've done a variety of those. We approved an R1 6 to 9. We've seen townhomes on other properties. That all said, we've talked about this for a while. We've given some direction, and I think a lot of that was met, but my input on this is it's just too dense. I think this is a great property to have a transition zone. I think as you move from the south to the north, we've talked about it, but the density's there's just too many in there. This plan can be done very similar with R16 lots for the majority of the property. And as I just broke out the math, doubling the density under a PDR, taking it from 3 units to acre to 6 units to acre drops it to a 108 on the count from a 144, which would allow us 6,000 square foot lots through basically Pioneer Parkway to the entrance of 400 East, roughly, maybe a little further than that, maintaining those lots along Patricia Drive, and then transitioning toward the north, what we have there in Tuscany. But there's just too much in there under the density in what I see as a good transition zone. I do believe that this is a property that that should be in a PDR and could be, but there's just too much in there. There's some great things in there. The pickleball, the open space, the things like that are great amenities, and all those can still be done under a lower density. So that's where I believe on this. I think that's all my notes.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks.
Lena?
I've struggled a little bit with this project because I live literally across the street. So those of you who don't know, I live in Village on the Heights. So if we had stuck with R110 for my subdivision, I wouldn't be there. And we are about 5 units an acre, just for a comparison. So I've gone and I did come to the Planning Commission meeting. I heard all of your comments at the Planning Commission meeting. I have gone back and forth on this. My biggest concerns were making sure that we maintained single family homes to the east so that it mirrored what the residents in Patricia in Heights West had, as well as single family homes to the south, so it mirrored my development. And then I struggled with the north part of that. I understand Ben's comment about density, but I also know that there's got to be a transition somewhere. And I've struggled with where that transition should be. As far as why it's in the R110 zone, that has been a holding zone, just so you know. So when that property was brought into Santa Clara, that's all we had to put it into. Currently, we don't do that, but that was the only option as to the zone that it could be zoned, because there wasn't any other option for us to zone it. So just know that that was a holding zone, and everything that came in at that point in time was zone R110 because we didn't have anything else to zone it, just so you know. I've had some people contact me. I've had meetings with my neighborhood. The biggest concerns that my folks have is parking and what that might do off of Patricia and the issues on Tuscany. I walk those streets about every day and know those parking issues. The one thing I do like about this plan is that the units that are on Tuscany mirror what's across the street, and that the driveways face Tuscany. What that does is by having driveways on Tuscany, the parking that is along Tuscany won't be along Tuscany any longer. They're going to need to park inside their development. I also like that the driveways on Patricia face Patricia for the very same reasons. It limits people being able to park on that street. There are 69, I don't know if it's mentioned, but there are 69 detached units in the development. And I think that has come a long ways from where we started, because we didn't like the original plan that came in. So, like I said, I've struggled, but there has to be a transition somewhere. And I guess I kind of feel like maybe this takes care of that transition. But anyways, those are my thoughts.
Krista?
Just that this is, I think like Councilwoman Mathis said, this is a tough one. There's a number of things that we need to address, and transition is one of them. One of my concerns, and I've expressed that to some residents who've reached out to me, is that we don't have much attainable housing in Santa Clara and the county, really. I think that we talk a little bit about quality of life. But I think not having housing in this price range is already affecting our quality of life. I've heard that the veterans home is looking at closing because they can't staff the veterans home with people who can work and live here. I feel like that's a real disservice to our community. I've heard that the ratio of nurses to patients in the hospital is a lot higher than it used to be, a lot lower than it used to be. 1 nurse to 6 patients during the day and 7 at night instead of 1 to 3 and 4. And I think this is already affecting our quality of life negatively, not having housing that is attainable for people who are in different careers that we depend on. So I appreciate that there are, like I said, a number of different price points or ways for residents to enter the housing market. That said, I know that the density is a concern, the parking is a concern. I think that the traffic has been addressed well with the 2 entrances only on 400 East and Pioneer Parkway. And I really feel that the driveways out on Patricia, where the homes face out on Patricia Drive and Tuscany Drive as well, are going to solve a large number of those parking issues. I talked a little bit about what a rental cap. I think that might address some of that concern about transiency in the neighborhood. Last thing I want to see is all landlord or investor owned and rented out units as well. I'd love to have more community, but I think our communities are more vibrant when we have different residents from all different walks of life. And that's sometimes achieved with different types of housing. That's my thought.
Thank you. Danny?
I believe that the integrity of what we're trying to create in Santa Clara is still something that I cherish, and I believe that single-family residential is the best way that we can maintain the lifestyle and enjoy what we have here. I also believe that affordability will be determined a great deal by market. If I build single-family residential across from apartments, the justification for a buyer, he'll know what's there. He'll determine whether he's going to pay the price to build the home. Affordability is still a nebulous term. What's affordable to one is not affordable to all, and we've tried to create with different townhome projects within Santa Clara an affordability option. So far, it hasn't happened. And also, that brings me back to rezoning, what is being asked for is a zone change. And in the zone change, we create an opportunity for a sale and someone else doing a development that we have less controls over than we do with what we have existing. And to me, I think that Clayton has done a great job trying to do what has been asked, but at the same time, the density levels are considerably higher than what I would consider safe for the neighborhood and for the area and to protect those individuals that are already living here. Thanks.
Jared?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll say I agree with what's been said by the other council members. And, I've talked to a lot of people in Santa Clara. I read all the emails. I listened to the Planning Commission on YouTube. And the resounding feedback I'm getting from residents is just they appreciate the fact that the council is trying to offer different housing types, but we don't necessarily have the best track record in it working out how we hoped it would, and that we really just need more single-family homes in Santa Clara. And one quote I just wanted to read real quick from an email we got. This is from Josh Jackson. He wrote, "When these projects are built in place of single-family homes, this diminishes the potential single-family stock. Thus, the affordability of long-term solutions drops, not rises." And I really think that is kind of playing out in our community right now, where, like, for example, the townhomes across from Lava Ridge, I really thought when we passed that, they'd all be sold. And it'd be a great opportunity for a young family to come in and move in. And that's definitely not what worked out. And even with it all being investor owned, you'd hope that people could still afford the rent and a young family could still move in there. It's right down the street from my house, and that's not how that development has worked out at all. And so, yeah, I definitely have concerns with the density in this project. And really what I would love to see is just a mirror of the project to the south. in a great portion of this project. Like I can see changing the density to something higher, like the R16, I think would work really well in this. As Lena said, her development is 5 units to the acre. And when I walk through that area, I feel like it's a neighborhood. I feel like people move there, they stay there a long time, they invest in their community. And that's what I would love to see on this property as well. And then I would just point to the general plan. I won't have Brock pull it up, but on page 22, there's actually a picture of how density should transition. And recommend everyone take a look at that at some point. And this plan isn't exactly following that. It's to a degree, but basically you have an R1 10 neighborhood, and then it goes to a smaller density, and then it ends up in townhomes. And really the townhomes are already there. We don't necessarily need to have townhomes on this property to create a transition. Or maybe there's one row of townhomes to make that transition, but it doesn't need to be over half the units in the project. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. All right, council, you have heard the presentation from the staff, presentation from the applicant. You've had the opportunity to review the numerous public comments, listen or read the minutes of the public hearing, study the exhibits. Any further discussion? If not, then I would look for a motion.
I can make the
Mayor.
motion.
Can I just ask, sorry, Jared, I didn't mean to interrupt, but just have Matt just kind of go over options on this. I mean, obviously it's here for a zoning. I mean, do we have the option to table to relook at this or just simply deny? Do we have both those options in this?
If the council feels like you need additional time to consider it, you can table it to a future meeting. You know, I think it would certainly be helpful to the applicant if you could identify, you know, information or questions that you have that haven't been answered to help them prepare for that potentially. And the staff can assist with that as well in between meetings. But yes, you do have that option. You know, other than tabling it, you know, the application's before you for a decision and it can go up or down. If you decided that you wanted to approve it, you could approve it with conditions. This is a PD zone. And so you have, again, a lot of discretion as to what you want to see happen as part of the project plan that becomes part of the zoning if it's approved. And some potential conditions have been discussed, you know, tonight. So does that help?
It does. My only reason I ask is if it was voted to deny, does the applicant under that scenario have the ability to come back with a new project plan, lower densities, things like that?
Great question. So I'm, of course, going off memory here. We actually had this situation a little while back. You probably remember.
And that's why I'm asking. Is I want to.
So our ordinance requires that if something is going to be reconsidered within a short period of time, I think it's within a year, that it has to come back with significant changes. You know, and you probably remember we talked a lot, or maybe we did with the Planning Commission, about what is significant changes, and it's not real well defined in the ordinance. But that would be up to the applicant to demonstrate that whatever they're bringing back for reconsideration has changes that are significant enough. And I think last time what we did is we essentially gave the Planning Commission two questions. We said, first of all, do you think the application has significant enough changes that it's appropriate to reconsider? And then second of all, if they decided yes, then second of all, we had them make a recommendation on the application. So that would be the scenario, basically. If you said, you know what, we're just going to deny it, then the applicant would have to wait a year, or they could come back and propose a modified application, but they would have to demonstrate that it has substantial enough changes to justify a reconsideration.
Okay.
Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think you hit it.
Okay.
And that's the way I understand the ordinance to read as well. It has to be substantial. You know, another option would be a new application. I've heard R16, so
True.
there's
True.
options there if it's denied.
Yeah, if it's a
or
new
it's
zone,
back.
I mean, that's clearly a new application and they would not have to wait to come back. So.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for staff or Matt? Additional discussion, council?
I do have one question for Matt, and I think it was brought up by a resident about if we were to approve a PDR zone, that would stay with the property if the applicant in the future decides to sell it.
Yes, good question. So because the PDR zone approval incorporates the project plan, if the applicant decided to sell the property before it was developed, the new owner would take it with that zoning, which would include the approved project plan. So if the new owner wanted to change that, they would have to come back in, go through essentially a zone change process to amend either the zoning or the project plan, whatever they wanted to do. But yes, it would stay with the property. Now, I say there are some limitations on that because if the property, if they get a certain point through the development process and then don't continue, they can lose some of their vesting. But generally speaking, with respect to zoning, that's not the case. So it would continue at least as a PD.
Thank you.
Other questions, council? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Okay, I move that we deny the proposed rezoning of property of 400 East Patricia Drive as presented.
I'll second that.
I've got a motion by Jarrett, a second by Denny to deny the PDR application as currently presented. Any question on that motion, council?
Mayor, maybe I waited too late, but as a counselor, if the applicant came back with lower densities similar to what we see across, I mean, would that be significant enough to accept or to look at it? For just as we're talking here, would it have to? I guess I just want to understand under a denial, is it a full year? Would we look at a project plan with lower densities similar to what's across the street, maybe with a transition to what's on the north side at the end?
Or could we substitute for a motion to table?
I think it's significant change. And if it's significant change, it can come back within less than a year. So that would be determined by staff and then brought to the planning commission and to the council.
So if the densities were reduced, to the level, 5 or 6 units the acre like it is across the street at Village on the Heights, that in my mind would be a substantial change because in order to meet that, you would probably be changing townhomes to detached. There may still be a mix of them, but the numbers are obviously going to change. The amenity package may change. The open space distribution may change. Street layouts could change. I think all of that could constitute a significant change. Jim, do you agree with that?
I do. I think that would be a significant change to the project plan and to the application. I just want to see how our legal counsel feels about that as well.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to express an opinion on whether that's significant or not, but what I will say is I think the way our ordinance is written, it actually leaves that determination up to the planning commission. So that may not be a decision that comes back to you. Basically, the planning commission would consider that. Now, certainly, if the city council, counselors, if you have feelings about that being significant, some of those have been expressed. I think that could be guiding potentially for the planning commission, but I think that would be their decision.
And my purpose of the question is we do need housing. I mean, bottom line is we don't want to wait a year, and some may, but we do have a desperate need for housing. Now, this has come a long way from when we met a year ago. It needs some work, but we do desperately need housing. So I'd hate to see a denial that comes back to the planning commission that doesn't allow us to look at this sooner than later because it's got some work, but I don't think it's terribly far off to getting those densities where I think it would it would work and it'd be a nice transition. So that's my only concern. And otherwise, if we're worried on the planning commission just saying no, I'd almost rather table it. But anyway, that's.
I think you have to go through the vote on the motion. It's before you unless the guy who made the motion wants to withdraw the motion and put in a substitute, but you can, even if it was, the motion is to deny. So if that motion is defeated, an alternative or a substitute motion can be made by another member of the commission. That answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions relative to the motion that's before you right now? There's a motion on the floor. I need to go through the vote on the motion. Any question from the council? All right, this is a roll call vote. Jarrett?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Krista?
No.
Lena?
Nay.
Ben?
Nay.
The motion fails by a throat of 3-2. Is there an alternative motion?
I would like to make that motion that we table this project and allow the applicant to work with staff in proposing new layout with densities that would meet more what we've discussed tonight.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a substitute motion by Ben to table the decision to allow the applicant to work with the staff, incorporate some of the city council comments into the plan and come back to us. Is that fairly stated?
Do we have a second on the motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Krista.
Okay, sorry, I didn't.
Sorry.
Can I make a comment, Mayor?
Absolutely.
I think there's a question about what process would be required for that. I think the changes that we're talking about are significant enough that it would probably have to go back to the planning commission as well and we don't really have a recommendation on this current plan. So I think that would be wise to take a revised plan back to the planning commission, have a public hearing, get a recommendation, and then have it come back to you. But, they could do that.
Yeah, I would expect that. And I think it would give the planning commission a chance to look at it again, give the residents another opportunity for public comment. The applicant time to obviously look at and visit with staff and make those adjustments.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion to table the item?
Yeah, so if we approve the table, we're basically saying, don't bring this back to us. Like, we're just not going to ever see this plan again, basically, right? Because if we're tabling, we're expecting it to come back to us at some point. Usually, we're expecting to make some changes and come back, but we're saying it needs to go back to a planning commission needs to basically start over, which isn't exactly a table in my mind.
Well, he could look at it and maybe comes up with a plan that doesn't have a significant change. He can always bring that back for additional discussion here. And it may face a denial, but he can table it for him to look at it, visit with staff, try and incorporate some of the comments to be made, and maybe not be a significant change. It would have to go back to planning commission. Like if he went in and eliminated a percentage of the townhome units, left the layout about the same, density could drop, but the elevations are the same. There's a lot of things that are the same. Traffic study would still be valid. Geotech would still be valid. There's a lot of things that wouldn't have to be redone. And then it could probably come back here. I think there is some merit to trying that. He may not want to proceed forward with that and want to proceed forward with the new plan, and then he'd have that option. But at least you're still giving him the option to come back with something similar to this to a future meeting date.
I think, Jared, the only concern is just leaving it to a body to say, no, we're not, can't come back in for 12 months. I think that's, you're right. It does give him an option to adjust it, modify it and come back. But I think there's enough modifications that it probably does need to. So you're right, under denial, it gives them that option, but it also puts the risk out there that this may not happen for a year and delays for a year. And under a table, it gives them kind of both options, but you're right.
The one thing that he does get is he now understands what your feelings are as a council and what your comments are as a council. And he has the opportunity to consider that outside of an immediate thing, decide if he wants to, come back and take a shot at a vote, and it gives you if he comes back next week with that exact same plan, then, and says, I'm not willing to make any changes to it, then you have a decision to make then too.
So I guess we're tabling the zone change. We're not tabling the plan.
We're tabling the zone change.
We're
Correct.
tabling
It's
the
here for
zone
a zone.
change.
It's here for a zone change tonight.
Okay, so how does that work?
The
So he
project,
brings back the same plan, we have to review the same zone change
well,
again.
because this is a PD zone change request, the project plan is an integral part of the zone change. So it's all part of the approval. You're not going to
Okay.
approve the PD zone without a project plan. You can't under the
And
ordinance.
so why would the denial not be better than the table?
Because the planning commission could say, oh, we're not going to look at it for another year.
Well,
Except that if he brought back a new plan, a new application.
Yeah, but
It's chose to go that route, then it would be a new application.
it's arbitrary. It's vague. I mean, who's going to determine the changes are significant enough?
well, in
that's-
tabling it, who's going to determine that?
What's that?
If we table it, who's going to determine that?
We'll all have another chance to look at it and make.
Well, so
that-
will the planning commission.
But I think the point, tell me if I'm wrong, Ben, but I think the point Ben is making is you're taking away from the planning commission the decision, the threshold decision as to whether a change is significant enough. You're basically saying, we're going to table this.
Make that decision.
No, it doesn't have to be made because the application will still be active. And so you're basically saying, we're going to table this, give him a chance to make changes in response to what the city council is saying. It may need to go back to the planning commission, and that'll be something that the staff will work with the applicant to figure out. If it's like the mayor has said, maybe maybe it doesn't need to do that, but I would think in most cases, the changes that we're talking about would probably need to go back to the planning commission. But you're just taking off the table that possibility that you deny it and then he comes back with changes that he believes are substantial and the planning commission says, we don't think they're enough. I think Ben's just saying we want it to come back to us within a year.
So does that take the public hearing away or will we pursue another public hearing on it? Because in my mind.
Any significant change has to go to public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you pulled off unit 15 and 22 and it came back, in my mind, that's not going to constitute a significant change.
I tend to agree because it's the same basic layout.
Same layout, same building configuration.
But if it comes back and it looks like Village on the Heights, that's a significant change.
That's
I mean, that's maybe an extreme example, and if it goes back to planning commission, it needs to have a public hearing. That's my take on it, just, sitting right here. So
So by tabling it doesn't exclude the planning commission review and public hearing.
I don't think so.
It does.
I would agree. I mean, a significant change, what we're talking about would go back to the planning commission for a public hearing. Give them the opportunity, the public has an opportunity to speak to the issue, the council, planning commission can then make a decision, make a recommendation to the city council.
I guess it's just what signal you want to send to the developer. A denial is that needs to change significantly. A table is what can you do to satiate our concerns? So I guess it's just what message do we want to send?
I think the comments are there. I think we've spoke. I mean, we're talking removing a minimum 36 units. It's going to be a significant change to mirror what's around it. I mean, it's all I'm trying to do is just eliminate the risk of this not coming, not having a chance to review it and get some housing out there sooner than later. But I don't disagree. It needs, I think we all spoke on it. There needs to be a fair amount of change addressed there. This just, all it does is just eliminates the risk. And frankly, if it goes back to, I think there's going to be enough regardless either way, but I'd rather have our opportunity to see it and not leave it up to the other body.
You have a motion on the table and a second. Any other question relative to that motion? No. No. Any other questions on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to roll call vote, all in favor to table the motion, say aye. Ben?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Danny?
Nay.
Jarrett?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. The item's tabled. Okay, council, item 6, discussion and action to consider approval of spring slurry seal project to Morgan Pavement for a total project price of $304,407. Dustin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've attached a list of the streets we're going to do. This is what we need to do to get caught up to keeping our 5 to 6 year program. I've also attached a map of the streets and the 3 competitive bids. Again, that was Morgan Pavement at 0.179 cents per square foot. Any questions?
Let us
Need a minute?
Give us a minute.
Can I make the motion?
Please.
Is there a map of it?
Yeah,
There is. I looked at that.
They're in a middle.
Yeah, can I look at something? Okay.
So it's just on your scheduled slurry seal that.
Yep.
Set,
Your routine.
7-year plan or 5-year plan?
5 to 6.
Okay.
How's this compared to the prices we got this year?
We
Or
paid
last-
1.7, we paid 1.174 last year, so it's not much more. I thought it would actually be more than this, but
So
it's
did you
pretty good.
join with Ivans again?
Yep.
Okay. Questions, council?
Well, can you tell me kind of where this is? It's not
What-
great with maps,
where's-
but like the upper portion, like, is that all?
I usually try to do some of the new stuff too. So we're starting down in the valley. You got us down here on Malaga, Arrowhead, Lava Flow, that whole area. And then moving right down through the valley, Victor's, Vernon's, Quail. And then out to South Hills. I'm gonna do that whole subdivision out there. And then some of the newer stuff up in the Heights, Bella Soul,
You're still doing it in front of my house every year, aren't you?
every year,
Yeah, thanks. Thank
Oh,
you.
we
Dustin.
do it
Really
twice.
appreciate it.
twice.
All right. What, spring and fall seal? No, this is a big part of why our roads look as good as they do.
Yeah.
Mayor, I'd make the motion that we approve the spring slurry seal project to Morgan Pavement for a total project price of $304,407.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion by Ben and a second by Denny to approve the spring slurry seal project to Morgan Pavement for a total of $304,407. Any question on that motion, council? Roll call vote. All in favor, say aye. Jarrett?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Mayor and council reports, Ben.
Here we had flood control last week and approved some emergency relief down at Southgate to remove sediment out of the Santa Clara there where it built up and flooded the golf course. We're all eagerly watching the snow melt So far it's doing what it's supposed to do. Getting warm and then it'll cool down. So that was a good meeting and hopefully we don't have to, the only reason we have to meet again soon is if there were problems. So we're crossing our fingers. And then I'm sure others will talk on it, but attended that voting today at the county building. Most were there and it was actually very helpful.
Interesting.
So, in fact, Ryan, a lot of you know Ryan Sullivan, he's just moved over there to that and very much in favor of the sorting machine to where we can have precincts. And so it'll be good. So I think that's all I had. Looking forward to the parade next week.
You were excited.
All right. I just wanted to cue into your part. So that's all I have.
You want me to go next?
You betcha.
Okay, first I'm going to talk about City Alliance. Just as a reminder, on the 24th of April from 11 to 1 is our year-end celebration. It's
11 p.m.
11 a.m. It's lunch. So
Oh.
11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the 24th at the university in the Holland building up at the Zion Room, just like the first time where we met. So put it on your calendars. I suppose they'll have pictures of all of our projects that we've accomplished and it should be great.
I've seen a couple of the posters on Facebook that the students are prepared for that presentation.
Awesome.
You say 11.
11 to 1 on the 24th.
Yeah.
And you should actually have an email in your inbox. They do want an RSVP for lunch. So if you'll just send in your RSVP, that'd be great. Okay, then the fair. I'm so excited. Aren't you all so excited about the fair? I'll be starting to put up our display tomorrow. Come on, it'll be great. Yay. So here are the dates and times of where everyone needs to be if you choose to participate. It starts this Friday and Saturday with the youth rodeo and there's a couple, there are like 3 different rodeos that are going on Friday and Saturday. So if you would like to ride in the truck at the rodeo, kind of like they do at the Sun Bowl, if you ever go to the Lions Rodeo, same idea. You need to be at the outdoor arena at the fair park, both Friday night and Saturday night by 6 p.m. The grand entry goes through the fair at 6:30 through the rodeo ground. So be there by 6 outdoors. It would be great, Mr. Marshall, Grand Marshal, if your wife would attend with you as well.
It's on the record. You want me to call her real quick? Get her on.
Then on,
Take a little encouragement.
I'll text her. I'll text her. Then on Tuesday,
Is
April
Saturday the same time? 6 p.m.?
6 p.m. both nights.
Okay.
6 p.m.
Friday and Saturday.
6 p.m. Saturday. Yep.
Okay.
April 18th, which is Tuesday, that is the night of the parade. Chief will be able to get the fire truck there, correct? Okay, just making
That's a
sure.
long run for that fire truck.
It's parked up the hill ready to just
Gotta go.
hop started to get a go on.
To Washington? Is that where this?
We might want to.
Clear to Washington.
There to, this'll be, you better send them on Monday.
Yeah. So the lineup starts at 4:30 till 5:30. It's at 300 East, starting at 200 North, which I think is up by the rec center. If that's where the rec center is. And then it goes down to the veterans down in the middle of town. However, I got an email last night from the fair director that we have been asked to participate in the ribbon cutting for the Washington Museum. That is at 5:30 the night of the parade. So we need to have our trucks and our parade entries all in place prior to that. And then they're going to take us down, go to the ribbon cutting. You and your lovely first lady as well, down to the ribbon cutting. Then they'll transport us back from the museum.
Is the museum down by their town?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And they'll transport us back and forth, but we just need to be there early enough because that ribbon cutting is at 5:30. Then they'll transport us back And then the parade starts at 6. Brock left, but I hope he's in charge of candy. And then I think that is all of our, for council, that's all of the assignments.
What about for me?
I think you're good. I think you're good after that.
I've got yours, Mayor, right here. Hold on.
That's the last one that I'm aware of as of today for you.
I know they told me today they wanted me to come to everything that was going on over there, and it just kind of gave him a blank stare.
I think they'd love to have you and your lovely wife. They're just roaming, to be honest. But those are the only committed events that I'm aware of. Any questions? Make sure you go to I think it's called the Graph Building. I know where it's at, but I think it's called the Graph Building. That's where the community displays are. So make sure when you go over to visit the fair to stop in the Graph Building to see our fair display. I'm sure all of you have come every year's past to see our one on the sidewall.
The graph.
Grafton Building? Okay, perfect. And it will be there. We've got a tractor.
Unless you get sidetracked to the beer garden.
There's a beer garden. I might have a chance, yes. For one on the parade.
And that's all I've got. That's all I've got. We'll have 3 entries in the parade. Us, you, well, actually, we'll have, 3 entries. Council, Grand Marshal, and Royalty. That'll be great. Great representation from the city.
Cool. Very cool.
And I think that's all I have.
That it?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Krista?
I had the opportunity to attend the Salt Lake Tribune Opinions on Housing meeting. You were there. And we had a roundtable discussion with a lot of different, I guess I would call them stakeholders on our table. Heard from real estate agents and Habitat for Humanity representatives, some investors, and there wasn't a lot of consensus, but a lot of ideas on ways to address the housing crisis that we're facing here. Had the opportunity to hear a really powerful story from a woman who came here as a nurse, or not as a nurse, came here to escape a bad situation in Idaho with her children. She wanted to find housing for her children here. She went to school, became a nurse, worked as a nurse, found out that she couldn't afford housing as a nurse, went back to school to get her master's degree so she could be a nurse educator, and has now found that she still can't afford housing. So we had some really great insight into the housing market, I think, at that meeting. And the other thing is that I've reached out to the Dowdle Puzzle Company. We should be having our initial draft soon. So I have not heard back yet, but I will keep you posted, and I will try to set it for a time that our city manager will be in town. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Dan?
We had our solid waste district meeting this week, and the new cell is now ready to operate. So we'll be moving into a 50th year cell that we hope we don't need to use one any faster than every 50 years. So, but the costs have been actually been maintained by bid, and we've got a application into the CIB for low interest loans and a grant. We think that we're going to get it. That'll reduce the costs, and we don't picture any significant raises in our rates, but I won't have those figures for another 2 months. That's it.
You got First River Land Preservation. Is it a meeting or conference? What did I see?
We had that last night. And again, the city of Santa Clara, if we want to move forward with conservation easements, they're ready, willing, and able to work those so we can conserve those hillsides that we want protected in the rivers. We have 2 families that have got applications in for their property to be created as conservation easements, and we'll pursue that as it comes available.
Did you have your Snow Canyon State Park Committee meeting?
I did. Yeah, well, that was months ago. 2 weeks, yeah, we had our advisory board for Snow Canyon, and there were two significant things. They're trying to create some new parking areas in the canyon, in the park itself, 2 different locations, and they've kind of been put on hold because of funding. They're waiting. The funding they had for it last year, they didn't use it, so therefore they've been kicked down the list, and they're waiting for the funding for that. And the only that's probably the only significant thing that we discussed, but it was good. There was, some interest. We had Ivans and myself and 2 others there for the meeting. And
Okay, thank you. Jarrett?
We had a meeting with the county commissioners and everyone, not everyone, but mostly everyone on the CEC board about potentially renaming the station to Greater Zion Television, which we think is a good idea. But the feedback from the commissioners was not very good, actually, in terms of content on the station and views on YouTube and just a lot of things that we feel like the station kind of needs a reboot to really get to where we want to be. But I don't know if partnering more with the county will be the solution or not. So that's kind of an ongoing thing, but we're basically at a point where revenues continue to go down from TDS, and we either have to increase the cost to cities or scale back services or bring in new revenue. And so one of the thoughts was naming rights for the station, which is why we went down that route. So I don't get the sense that'll actually happen. So we're still batting around ideas for the station, and I really think things can turn out really well with the station. We have a good manager. He just needs a few more resources. And so I'll be pushing for those. But, and then, yeah, I enjoyed the lunch with the school district. And then I did bring up a couple concerns with the deputy clerk about our tour today. The laptops on the far wall were kind of interesting. And I checked, and there is Wi-Fi in the room. It's one of those laptops could just be flipped onto Wi-Fi, and then your airlock is over. And so he said he was also concerned with that and would be trying to figure out if they really do have Wi-Fi in those laptops and if you could disable it permanently somehow or something like that. So that was kind of interesting. But otherwise, I really had the sense that they definitely know what they're doing. And I totally understand why Chris recommends we go with the county, because to do that process just in our city would be, it felt insurmountable. I know it's not, but they really do a good job there. And just a plug for the UAPS workshop next week. With all of our complaints about the PCA, we need to be educating ourselves as much as possible and trying to get as many answers as we can for our citizens. So I'd really recommend you go to that if you can.
I spoke to Washington City today while we were over there, and it looks like they're going to incorporate PCA. That it?
That's it.
Jared, did Jim Entz get a hold of you?
He did, yes.
Okay, they're just trying to get direction on, is the plan good, and funding and all of that. I think we may want to maybe look at that. I guess get the group, and
it almost feels like it needs to go back to a work meeting and have the plan in front of us.
I think it feels that way, that we really need to kind of get a plan together as to, I think they're ready to go.
The orchard, yeah.
This is for the orchard, sorry. But yeah, they're not one way or the other on the plan. And I think it probably as a council, and we probably ought to have that group involved and just say, hey, let's get together and just really hammer this out so we can get some direction so they can start planting and trails and moving, whatever we need to do. So.
And I've gotten a couple of questions from residents. The sign's been up there a long time. How come nothing's planted?
Yeah.
So I think the pressure's starting to build a little bit.
Good. The meetings with the water district are I'm not going to say they're going well. There is a definite struggle going between east side and west side cities. That is limiting moving forward with the rural water supply agreement amendment and will serve letters and those types of things. We're meeting again tomorrow. So we'll see where that goes. I do have some concerns right now on getting consensus with the seven cities to get that agreement amended. Just give you an idea on the floods, on the flooding. This morning, we had probably the highest peaks that we've seen in the river since the major flood event, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. They're still very manageable levels, particularly in Santa Clara. The work that was done recently at Southgate seemed to help down there. There is more work planned at Sunbrook, some emergency work. There's probably half a dozen emergency projects that are in play right now. The state and the Corps have been very cooperative with the communities that are requesting help and getting the permitting process so we can get going on those fairly quickly. So in the event that we did see a need, Dustin, I think we can get emergency permits quick and able to facilitate the work, but I don't anticipate the need up here right now. Give you an indication, the 3 days where we were in the mid 80s, you took about 4 to 5 inches of snow off the mountain every day on Cedar Mountain, the headwaters to the Virgin. I would anticipate that we're seeing that similar amount, maybe even a little bit more in the Santa Clara Basin, where there's a little less snow. So the weather that we're getting right now is perfect. Get it to warm up for 2 or 3 days. It gets some snow off, then it cools back down so it doesn't overburden the facilities and it can come off slow. So I'm still feeling good. The biggest threat right now is rain. If we were to get a rain on snow event right now, we would see significant damage throughout the county along the river system. There's just too much energy sitting up there right now still to come off. And I've showed you those calendars where you see the graph where the snow melt comes off fairly rapidly, and we're busted through the high side of that graph. And so there's still a tremendous more energy up there right now than there ever has been historically. So you don't really know what you're going to get down here if it comes off too fast. Fortunately, the 10-day forecast still shows no rain, and it shows bouncing between the 80s and the 70s over the next 10 days, which is perfect. So if we can just keep that coming, we should be able to avoid the flooding threat. But everybody's paying attention. I get a lot of residents calling and asking me, and I'm basically just telling them the same thing. Pay attention. If you see something start to happen, let us know. We can maybe help you get in there and get some work done to minimize the damage. But right now, the river's running high enough that we can't get equipment in to pull sediment. So hopefully it'll come down the next couple of days and we'll be able to get the equipment back in. So just be careful around the rivers. The luncheon with school district, I thought went well. They're going to be coming. For you guys that weren't there, they're going to be coming to a future meeting. They'll probably reach out and schedule to come to a meeting and talk about their new bond financing alternatives. They're not going to be going after bond financing going forward. They're doing it a different way. The question that they're having is years ago when they needed a new school, they would go and issue bonds and they would take it to the ballot, and they would usually get an 80% approval for the bonds. The bond they did last year passed by 1%. The public's not in that mode, so they're looking to try and find alternative financing in that. But they're going to come and make a presentation to the council at a meeting I would anticipate in the next month or so. So be aware of that, Brock.
You want to report on your progress with Utopia? That happened after our last meeting.
you know, I was able to get the plans approved and released from the city of St. George that was holding up the plan approval on the connection line. But then today, Dustin told me that they reported now TDS is holding up the actual connection. Which really ticks me off. And so I may want Matt to write a letter. I guess they have to make a splice. And I'm not the fiber wizard, but there's some type of splice that is required, and evidently TDS either has to do the splice or grant permission for the splice. And they've scheduled it, but not until they can't get there because they're so busy till the end of June. And so I think we need to reach out to Utopia and TDS and apply as much pressure as we can. That they need to get that thing done on a priority. We can't have the competitor holding us up from being able to proceed.
Brock, do you remember what the status of TDS's franchise agreement is? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay, we should pull their franchise agreement and just look at it just to see if there's anything there that would help us.
Yeah, please do that.
Okay.
Man, we just found that out driving over to the thing today. So we haven't had time to hardly even think about it, but after as long as we've waited for them not to be able to make that connection until June is ludicrous. So, all right, let's take some action. We can sign Denny's name to the left. Okay, I think that's all I had. Brock, did you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Staff, any fire drills? Okay, I gave you one shot. No executive session?
Yes, we need an.
We do have it, just a short one.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
Can we
promise for my part, it will be.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Whatever you want.
We'll go into executive session.
But it's an executive session to discuss pending litigation.
Okay, council, we're gonna take a 5-minute break and then we're gonna into executive session and discuss pending litigation.
Want to